Welcome to another deep dive. This
Yeah.
time, we're going to be looking at the Book of Q'ab-iTz
Okay.
by David Herrerias.
Oh, very cool.
Have you ever come across this one before?
I haven't actually. No.
Okay, well, I'm fascinated by it already, just from
Yeah.
reading the intro and just kind of getting a sense of like his approach.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's combining his own personal experiences with the occult. And he's drawing from his dreams and rituals and
Right.
and esoteric traditions and things like that.
Well, and what's remarkable about this book is that he's not just presenting a theoretical framework or anything like that, but he really invites us
Right.
to walk alongside him on this journey.
Yeah.
And he shares his intimate encounters with
Yeah.
these mysteries of life and death and
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's written in a way that's just
Mhm.
very compelling right from the start.
Right.
One of the things that I found really striking was his childhood experience of encountering a corpse.
Oh, wow.
And it sounds like this really ignited his fascination with the other, right?
Yeah.
Like these forces
Right.
that lie beyond our everyday perception. Um, and I wonder if this event kind of awakened a sense of like
Yeah.
a calling or a destiny.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And
Yeah.
he does describe feeling stalked by the other after this experience,
Right.
almost like something had been awakened within him.
Wow.
Yeah, and he uses this really interesting term, crooked path,
Okay.
to describe his kind of unconventional approach to spiritual exploration.
Oh, okay.
It's not about adhering to any rigid doctrines or dogmas or anything like that. It's more about
Yeah.
intuitively navigating this labyrinth of consciousness.
That image of a labyrinth is so powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it really captures that sense of mystery and exploration that
Absolutely.
pervades the book.
All right.
He also talks about this crossroads of the Holy Sabbath.
Right.
Now, what exactly does that signify?
Well, he describes it as this point where the waking world and the dreaming world converge.
Okay.
It's this liminal space where the conscious and the unconscious intertwine,
Yeah.
and where the veil between the known and the unknown becomes very thin.
It sounds like he's using these practices as a means to kind of understand the nature of reality itself, right?
Absolutely.
To pierce through those illusions of the everyday world. You mentioned that he takes a very unconventional approach.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of what that actually looks like in practice?
Well, one of the key concepts that he introduces is the formula of Kadir.
Okay.
Sometimes he also refers to it as the formula of the one.
Okay.
And he links this to the year he calls HU. And this seems to be like a really pivotal point in his journey.
Okay.
It's marked by what he calls the conception of the first vessel.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he uses the example of language. Okay.
To illustrate this formula. So he deconstructs words like Saul and son. And he's suggesting that even these simple symbols hold a really profound meaning.
Right.
And connect us to a deeper cosmic order.
So it's about recognizing the power of symbols.
Exactly.
Not just as representations of something else, but as gateways to kind of hidden knowledge and understanding. It reminds me a lot of Carl Jung's work on archetypes and the collective unconscious.
Yeah.
Would you say there's a connection there?
Definitely. I mean, Herrerias seems to be tapping into a very similar vein of thought, exploring how symbols can unlock these deeper layers of the psyche.
Right.
And it's not just limited to language.
Right.
He also talks about sketches and artistic expressions as ways of revealing the unconscious mind.
Right.
It's almost like a direct line to the subconscious.
Yeah.
However, he does warn about the potential for what he calls incursions.
Oh, now that sounds a bit ominous.
What does he mean by incursions?
Well, he describes them as these unforeseen consequences or these unexpected shifts in energy that can significantly impact our lives.
So it's like opening a door to the unknown.
Exactly.
And not knowing what might step through.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense that delving into the unconscious could have these unpredictable effects.
Right.
It's interesting that he uses a lot of pictograms and ideograms throughout the book. It's almost as if he's inviting the reader to actively participate in decoding the hidden meaning rather than just passively absorbing information.
Absolutely. It's like he's creating this puzzle box of knowledge and challenging the reader to engage on this deeper level.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of decoding,
Okay.
let's move on to two central symbols in his system. The sigils Q'ab and Q'ab-iTz.
Right.
Visually, they're quite striking.
Yeah.
One is written with a dot above the other. And he connects these to the Q'ab-iTz and phallus, representing absence and presence. And this idea that each sigil offers a unique way of knowing is really fascinating. How does he explain this?
Well, he breaks down the composition of each sigil to kind of reveal these hidden layers of meaning. So Q'ab is composed of the letters Qaf, Aleph, and Beth, which represent sleep, foolishness, and light.
It seems kind of counterintuitive to associate foolishness with a path of knowledge. But perhaps he's hinting at the need to let go of preconceived notions in order to truly see.
That's an interesting perspective.
What about the other sigil, Q'ab-iTz?
Well, that one is composed of Sa, Yoth, and Sadi, representing growth, despair, and consciousness.
It seems to suggest that confronting those darker aspects of ourselves is essential for expanding our consciousness.
It's like he's saying that true growth doesn't come from avoiding the darkness, but from embracing and integrating it.
It makes you wonder what he suggests we do with these sigils. Are they purely symbolic, or are they meant to be used in some way?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. He connects them to sigil magic, which involves using symbols to invoke specific forces from the unconscious mind.
So he's not just presenting theory, but he's actually offering practical tools for exploring these mysteries that he's uncovering. It makes me wonder what kind of person is drawn to this kind of work. What motivates someone to dive so deeply into the occult?
That's a great question, and one that I think we can explore further as we delve deeper into the Book of Q'ab-iTz. But I'd say it takes a certain kind of courage to confront the unknown, to face those aspects of ourselves that we often try to keep hidden.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
No.
And speaking of unsettling, there's a rather mysterious figure that emerges in the book. And it's linked to the formula of the androgyne and the year of SA. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, we're talking about Izika,
the
androgyne, a figure born from this mystical concoction and linked to a Dakini entity.
Now, a Dakini is a powerful female being in Tibetan Buddhism, often associated with energy and transformation. So Izika is a being that embodies both masculine and feminine energies. Emerging from this potent concoction. That sounds like something out of an alchemist's lab.
It does.
What role does Izika play in Herrerias' journey?
Well, it seems that Izika acts as a guide, helping him to navigate his own ontological dilemma.
Interesting.
It's during this period, under Izika's guidance, that he begins to explore a specific ritual, the navigation of a labyrinth.
Oh, that's intriguing. Now, we've already encountered the labyrinth as a metaphor for this journey into the unconscious. But here it seems to be taking on a more literal form. What is the significance of the labyrinth in this context?
It seems to be a symbolic journey of confronting the opposer. The shattered self, which we'll discuss a little bit later. But what's really interesting is he mentions these specific tools for navigating the labyrinth. A candle, a rope, and the Sabbatic alphabet.
I'm curious about this Sabbatic alphabet. We haven't encountered that before.
No.
Can you shed some light on what it is?
It's a magical alphabet used in certain esoteric traditions. And it seems to play a significant role in Herrerias' exploration of the unconscious. Unfortunately, he doesn't go into a lot of detail about its origins or specific uses in the book.
So it's almost like he's leaving it to the reader to uncover those secrets for themselves. It's like he's leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, inviting us to do our own research and follow the path, whatever may lead. And speaking of paths, the next section of the book focuses on the formula of the Zoetic alphabet. Which he connects to the year of BHA, a period characterized by burying the axioms of I. It seems like we're moving into even deeper territory here.
We are.
Can you tell us more about this Zoetic alphabet and its significance?
Well, the Zoetic alphabet is a fascinating system that appears in certain occult traditions. Its exact origins are kind of shrouded in mystery. But it seems to be used for dream work, self-discovery, and exploring there's hidden realms of consciousness.
So it's like a language that's designed to unlock the secrets of the inner world. What's intriguing is that he connects it to this idea of burying the axioms of I. What could that possibly mean in the context of self-discovery? Is he suggesting like a dissolution of the ego or something?
That's a very insightful observation. Right. It does seem like he's pointing towards a process of transcending the limitations of that individual ego and connecting to something much larger, something beyond the boundaries of the self.
Okay.
And one of the key practices during this period is maintaining a meticulous dream diary.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Dreams often offer these glimpses into the unconscious, right?
Right.
Providing symbolic language
that
can kind of bypass those filters of the conscious mind.
Exactly.
What's interesting is that he emphasizes recording, not just the content of the dream, but also any interactions within the dream and even the position of the stars.
Yes. It seems like he's really attuned to these subtle connections between that inner world of dreams and the outer world of the cosmos, suggesting a deeper interplay between those realms.
Okay, so we've got this meticulous dream diary practice.
Yeah.
And then within that, he outlines 3 specific phases.
Right.
Anabasis, axis, and catabasis. Can you tell us a bit more about each of these phases and how they relate to the Zoetic alphabet?
Well, each phase involves working with specific letters from the Zoetic alphabet, as if he's kind of guiding the reader through this symbolic journey. So anabasis involves working with one letter for 8 days, starting with the sigil of Q'ab-iTz. It's like an ascent into the realm of the unconscious, exploring the energy represented by that particular letter.
So it's a gradual immersion into this symbolic world of the Zoetic alphabet, starting with the sigil that embodies sleep, foolishness, and light. It makes me wonder, what role does foolishness play in this context? Is it about kind of letting go of our intellectual understanding and embracing a more intuitive way of knowing?
That's a great question. It does seem to be about approaching this journey with a sense of openness and humility, recognizing that our rational mind might not be able to grasp the full scope of what we're encountering.
It's like the saying, the fool asks questions that the wise don't dare to ask.
Exactly.
Perhaps that kind of open-minded curiosity is essential for navigating this territory.
I think so.
So we have this initial ascent with anabasis. What about the next phase, axis? Where does that lead us?
Well, axis represents this pivotal point of transition. It's where the practitioner stands at the turning point of the labyrinth, using the sigil of Q'ab-iTz to kind of bridge that gap between worlds. Remember, Q'ab-itz's embodies growth, despair, and consciousness. Suggesting that facing our shadow self is really integral to this transformative process.
It's almost as if he's guiding us through this descent into the underworld. A confrontation with our deepest fears and shadows. And it's here, at this central axis, that we use the sigil that represents both growth and despair. It makes me wonder, what kind of experience does he describe at this turning point?
Well, unfortunately, he's quite cryptic about the specifics. But it seems to involve a really profound shift in perspective, a kind of dismantling of old beliefs, and a willingness to embrace the unknown.
So it's a point of no return, where we have to kind of surrender to the process, allow ourselves to be transformed by what we encounter.
Absolutely.
It's like crossing a threshold into a new realm of being, and then from there, we move into that final phase. Catabasis, another 8-day period working with the Zoetic alphabet, ending with Q'ab. So it seems like we're coming full circle.
We are.
Returning to that sigil that initiated this journey. It's a fascinating structure.
It is.
Almost like a spiral staircase, descending into the depths of the unconscious, and then ascending back into the light, transformed by that journey.
Exactly.
I'm already eager to learn more about this encounter with the opposer, which he seems to link to the year KHU, the second half of the BHA year. But for now, we'll have to leave our listeners in suspense. And encourage them to tune in to the next part of our deep dive into the Book of Q'ab-iTz. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Book of Q'ab-iTz. We left off with Herrerias kind kind of exploring the Zoetic alphabet.
Right.
And preparing to confront his opposer. Now, before we get to that, though, you mentioned this fascinating Toltec myth about the opossum, which he connects to the opposer. Can you tell us more about that?
So in Toltec mythology, the opossum is this cunning trickster figure.
Okay.
And he actually manages to steal fire from the gods.
Wow.
Bringing warmth and light to humanity.
Interesting.
And it's a reminder that, even these seemingly negative figures can play a really crucial role in our development.
It makes you think about how we often label things as good or bad.
Yeah.
Without really considering their full complexity.
Absolutely.
So in the context of the book of Q'ab-iTz, then how does the opossum as the opposer kind of fit into that idea?
Well, the opossum, even when he's stealing fire, is really driven by self-preservation. It's like our instincts or desires that we often label as bad. But Herrerias suggests that by confronting our opposer, our shadow self, we can actually gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and even access hidden potential.
That's a powerful idea.
Yeah.
It's not about denying our shadow side, but actually integrating it, seeing it as a source of wisdom.
Absolutely.
Rather than something to be feared or suppressed.
Yeah.
It makes me think of that saying, what we resist persists.
Right.
But the opossum is just one element
of
a larger symbol, right?
It is.
Remind us again about the totem of Q'ab-iTz.
So the totem is composed of 3 elements. The skull, the opossum, and the owl. And the skull represents wise blood, signifying the potential for wisdom and knowledge that emerges from confronting our mortality.
Interesting.
The opossum, as we discussed, is the embodiment of the opposer, the shadow self. And finally, the owl acts as a guide, a bridge between the waking world and the dreaming world.
You mentioned a connection between the owl and ancient Mexican tradition.
That's right.
What's the story there?
So Herrerias draws this really fascinating parallel between the owl and these figures called the Tlacaticatocolo. Yeah, and these were figures in ancient Mexican lore who were believed to be these owl men.
Owl men, wow.
With the ability to see 360 degrees.
Wow, that's amazing.
And they represented wisdom and this kind of comprehensive understanding of reality.
So the owl isn't just about navigating between different states of consciousness. It's about expanding our awareness to see things from multiple perspectives.
Exactly.
It reminds me of like the importance of empathy. Being able to step into someone else's shoes.
Absolutely.
But really understand their point of view.
It's about moving beyond this limited egocentric view of the world and embracing a more holistic understanding.
And in the context of the totem then, the owl seems to guide us towards integrating our shadow self, represented by the opossum, with our conscious awareness, symbolized by the skull. It sounds like a very delicate balancing act. Embracing both the light and shadow aspects of ourselves.
It is.
This totem seems to be a really powerful symbol of that integration. But let's return to the opposer for a moment. I'm curious about how Herrerias actually describes his encounter with this force. It takes place during the year he calls KHU. Right. What happens during that time?
He describes it as a time of really intense inner turmoil. And these really profound mystical experiences. He talks about experiencing overwhelming ecstasis, which sounds like this incredibly powerful out-of-body experience where his consciousness expands beyond the limitations of space and time.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It does.
You mentioned earlier that this is the time when he confronts his opposer. Does he provide any details about what that confrontation entails?
He's a little bit cryptic about the specifics, but it seems to involve a really deep dive into his dream diary entries from the previous year, kind of decoding that symbolic language and uncovering these hidden messages.
It's like the confrontation is happening on multiple levels in his dreams, through his writing, and through these profound mystical experiences.
It's like all the practices and the rituals that he's been engaging with are kind of culminating in this really intense period of transformation.
It makes me wonder, what's the role of the Zoetic alphabet during this time? Is he still working with it?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
He doesn't explicitly mention it.
Okay.
But I think it's safe to assume that, the insights that he gained from working with the Zoetic alphabet are informing his understanding of the dreams and the experiences that he's having.
He also mentions this concept of synthesis.
Yes.
As being central to this period, likening it to the figure of Qadir, this mysterious guide.
Yeah, who appears in various mystical traditions.
So even after this intense confrontation with the opposer and these profound mystical experiences, the journey continues.
It does.
It seems like the Book of Q'ab-iTz is really highlighting this idea of the spiritual path as a lifelong process of exploration and evolution.
It is.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those valuable takeaways from this book.
It's not about reaching some fixed destination. It's about embracing that ongoing journey of self-discovery and integration.
We've talked about the Zoetic alphabet confronting the opposer, even mystical experiences.
Right.
But one thing I'm curious about is what practical advice does he offer for those of us who might be interested in exploring these ideas further?
Well, he really emphasizes the importance of personal experience and experimentation.
So he doesn't provide a step-by-step guide or a rigid set of rules.
No. Instead, he encourages readers to engage with the material actively, to kind of explore the symbols and the practices that resonate with them, and to trust their own intuition.
So it's about taking what he offers as inspiration and guidance, but ultimately forging our own path, which aligns with his whole concept of the crooked path.
Yeah.
But speaking of practical advice,
Okay.
he does seem to emphasize the importance of dream journaling.
Yes.
Is there anything specific he suggests about how to approach that practice?
He encourages readers to be very meticulous in their recordings, noting not just the imagery and the emotions of their dreams, but also any interactions, symbols, or even the position of the stars.
It's almost like he's suggesting that the more detail we can capture, the more likely we are to uncover these hidden messages and insights.
Exactly.
Makes you wonder if there's some kind of connection between the position of the stars and the content of our dreams.
Yeah. It's a fascinating idea.
It is.
Yeah.
But before we get too lost in the stars, it's time we move on to part 3.
Okay.
Of our deep dive.
All right.
Welcome back to our deep dive.
Yeah.
It's the final part of our exploration into the Book of Q'ab-iTz.
Okay.
It's been quite a ride.
It has been.
I mean, we've journeyed with Herrerias.
Yeah.
Through his childhood encounter with death, his exploration of all these potent symbols and rituals, and even his confrontation with his opposer.
It's a dense book.
It is.
Multi-layered.
Yeah.
Filled with symbolism, mystical experiences, personal reflections.
And I think beyond all those intricate details, though, there's this powerful message. The importance of embracing the journey of self-discovery.
Absolutely.
Even when it leads us into uncharted territory.
Yeah. And that idea is really captured in his concept of the crooked path.
Right.
He's not advocating for following a prescribed set of rules or dogmas.
Right.
It's more about, encouraging us to find our own unique way through that labyrinth of consciousness.
It's about intuition, experimentation, and trusting our inner guidance.
Exactly.
Which it can be a daunting prospect for some.
It can be.
I mean, we live in a world that often values certainty, clear-cut answers.
Yeah.
But the Book of Q'ab-iTz seems to suggest that true understanding comes from embracing the unknown.
Absolutely.
From venturing beyond those confines of our comfort zones.
It makes me think of that real quote.
Oh, yeah.
Live the questions now. Perhaps you will gradually, without noticing it, live your way into the answer.
I love that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and it seems like that's exactly what Herrerias is inviting us to do.
Yeah.
To live the question.
To engage with those mysteries without needing to have all the answers up front.
And I think that's where the power of symbols comes in.
Yes.
He encourages us to really explore that symbolic language of our dreams, our intuitions, even the world around us.
Well, like they're speaking a language that bypasses the rational mind and taps into something much more primal, more intuitive.
He seems to suggest that Symbols aren't just arbitrary signs, but they're actually gateways to deeper meaning and understanding.
And that's why he places so much emphasis on personal experience and experimentation.
He doesn't provide a definitive interpretation of any of the symbols that he presents.
He wants us to discover our own meaning, to engage in a dialogue with the unconscious.
It's like he's giving us the tools and the inspiration, but the real work, the real discovery happens within each individual.
It's a very empowering approach.
It is.
Yeah.
But it also requires a certain level of courage, a willingness to confront those aspects of ourselves, our shadow self.
Our shadow selves.
That we often try to keep hidden.
That's where the opposer comes in.
Right.
Confronting that shadow self is an essential part of the journey.
It's not about denying or suppressing those darker impulses, but rather integrating them.
Recognizing them as part of our wholeness.
There's that great Jung quote.
Yeah.
The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. For no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. To become conscious of it involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality as present and real. This act is the essential condition for any kind of self-knowledge.
Powerful stuff.
And the book of Q'ab-iTz seems to offer some practical tools.
It does.
For engaging with this process.
Yeah.
You know, the dream diary practice, working with the zoetic alphabet, developing a language for understanding those symbolic messages that emerge from the unconscious.
It seems like these practices are designed to help us become more aware of the patterns and themes that are playing out in our lives, both consciously and unconsciously. And by bringing those shadows into the light of awareness, we can begin to integrate them and move towards a greater sense of wholeness.
It's a journey of transformation.
It is.
A process of becoming more fully who we're meant to be.
But the Book of Q'ab-iTz is just one perspective, one map for navigating this territory.
It's not about finding the one right way.
Yeah.
It's about discovering what resonates with us on a personal level.
Exactly. What works for one person might not work for another. It's about finding the tools and the practices that help us to connect with our own inner wisdom, our own unique way of being in the world.
And as we conclude our deep dive then into the book of Q'ab-iTz, I think it's important to leave our listeners with a sense of empowerment. This book offers a fascinating glimpse into one man's journey of self-discovery.
His own personal exploration of these mysteries.
But it's ultimately up to each of us to embark on our own exploration. It's like he's saying, here's what I've learned, now go out and discover your own truth.
A call to action.
Yeah, an invitation to embrace the mystery and adventure of being alive.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So for those listening, I encourage you to take a moment, reflect on what we've discussed. What symbols, what rituals, what practices resonate with you? What steps can you take today to deepen your connection with your own inner world?
That's right.
And embark on your own crooked path. Journey awaits.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Book of Q'ab-iTz.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.